Hey folks, this is episode 4. In this episode we'll be making the glass aquarium, aka the tank. We'll be making the water, the backdrop. We'll also be making a couple of tweaks to the distribution system just so it's easier to use. So without further ado, let's get to it. Open up your blend file and you should be left with this from episode 3. First off, we're going to make the aquarium glass with the substrate selected. We're going to tab into edit mode. I'll then select this corner vertice. I'm going to select this corner vertice. I'm going to select this corner vertice, and I'll select this corner vertice. So we've got all 4 corner vertices selected. I'm then going to hit Shift D. I'll then right click my mouse button to cancel that so it remains in the same position. Hit F for face, so we've added a face. I'll then hit P and we'll separate by selection. Tab out of edit mode. I'm just going to select this piece here. I'm going to go to my modifiers and I'm going to delete all the modifiers. So with this piece selected, I'm going to hit Ctrl A and apply the scale. I'm then going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to hit A to select all the vertices, so that's A, and then toggle select all. Hit numpad 1 to go into front view. Hit E, hold down Control and snap it to the grid to 8 units, so it's 80 centimeters tall. I'll then hit X, delete that top face, so we've got this. Excellent. Now before I continue on, we don't want any intersection here. As you can see, the substrate is intersecting with this cube here. We don't want that. So I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to go to X-ray view. I'm going to select all. I hit numpad 1. Now I'm going to hit SX.999 and hit enter. And as you can see, it's scaled it in slightly. Not enough to notice. I'm also going to hit numpad 3 to go into side view. And I'm going to hit SY.999. Hit enter, and that should do the same. There we go, so there's no intersection at all. Excellent. I'll tab out of edit mode. We can actually hide this substrate, so I'm going to click this button here and we're going to hide that. I'll then select this box. I'm going to toggle off X-ray view. I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate. I'm then going to hit G, X and hold down Control, and I'm just going to drag it over to here so it snaps over here. I'll then tab into edit mode. I'm going to hit 3 for face select and then select all. I'm going to hit I for inset. I'll hit I one more time and I'm just going to click this in place so around about there. This is going to be our silicone. I'm going to open up this menu and maybe I can change the thickness value to 0.01. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that looks sufficient to me. I'm then going to hit X and we're going to delete the faces. We also don't need these top faces here, so I'm going to select that top rim there, this one, shift select this one, and we'll shift select this one. I'll then hit X and delete faces. Now we have come across a little problem here, which is an easy fix. As you can see, these aren't level and they should be. So I'm going to hit 1 for vertices. I'm going to select all these vertices here. Maybe it will be easier if I hit numpad 1. I'll go to X-ray view, maybe numpad 3 to go into side view, and then I'll box select all these vertices here, leaving out these top ones. I'll then shift select one of these top ones. We'll change the transform pivot point to active element. I'll then hit SZ0. Now they should all be on the same level. Excellent. I'll tab out of edit mode. Now we need to give this some thickness, so that's easy enough. We go to add modifier, generate and solidify. Let's just toggle off X-ray view. I'll then select even thickness. I'm going to set the offset to 1 and I'm going to change the thickness to 0.001 perhaps. That seems thick enough for me. And we're also going to give this a material. So under your shader editor here, I'm going to click this and get rid of the substrate material. And we'll add a new material and we'll call it silicone. It's an easy enough material. It's just going to be black. I'm going to give it a roughness value of, let's say, 0.333. Now let's work on the aquarium. It should be easy enough. Now aquariums aren't just a cube. They're actually separate panels of glass that are silicone together. And we're going to recreate that. So I'm going to hit tab to go into edit mode. I hit number 3 for face select. I'm going to select these faces here. I'm going to hit P, separate by selection. I'm going to select this bottom face here. I'm going to hit P, separate by selection. So now if I tab out of edit mode and then hit Control J and I tab back into edit mode, these should all be separate panels. So I'm going to tab out of edit mode. I'm going to add a modifier. We'll go to generate and we go to solidify. Maybe we'll give it a thickness of, for this size tank, I'd say maybe 0.02. That's 20 mil thick. Okay, and we'll also add even thickness to this. Now we want the solidification to happen outward, so if for some reason your solidification is going inward, just flip this offset and it should happen outward. So now we need to adjust some of these panels so they tally up nicely. That's easy enough. I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to have to separate some of these panels again. So I'm going to select this panel, I'm going to shift select this panel, and I'm going to hit P, separate by selection. I'll then tab out of edit mode. We'll select these two panels here. I'll hit numpad 1 for front view. I'll increase this window, tab into edit mode. I'm going to select X-ray view. I'll hit number 1 for vertices select. I'm going to select all these vertices here, and I'll hit G, X, hold down control to snap it to the grid. Now it should be nice and flush with that side. We'll do the same for the other side. So I'm going to hit numpad 1. I'm going to box select these vertices, zoom in. I hit G, X, hold down control to snap it. Okay, now we need to do the same for this base as well. So I'm actually going to have to separate this piece for the minute. So I'll tab into edit mode, hit number 3 for face select. I'm going to select this bottom face here. I hit P and we'll separate by selection. Tab out of edit mode, we'll select this bottom pane here. I'll then hit numpad 7 for top view. I'll then tab into edit mode. I'm going to hit number 1 for vertices select. I'll select these two vertices here. I hit G, X, hold down control, snap it to the grid. Do the same for this side. Box select these two. G, X, hold down control to snap it to the grid. We'll select these two. G, Y, hold down control, snap it to the grid. We'll select these two, zoom in, hit G, Y, hold down control, snap it to the grid. Okay, let's see what we've got. All of these should conform something like this. Okay, now we can join all these panels together. I'll select this panel, shift select these panels, and shift select this panel. Hit Control J. Now although it seems like you can't see anything at the moment, the magic will happen when we add the bevel modifier. So we go to modifiers, generate, and we'll choose bevel. Obviously that's way too much at the moment, so let's just dial that in. So I'm going to reduce the bevel amount to something reasonably small, let's say 0.0025. And I'm going to give it 1, 2, 3. I'm going to give it 8 segments. You probably don't need to go that high. So we'll bring our silicone element in. So grab that, hit G, X, hold down control, snap it to the grid till it's in place. Excellent. Now we need to give this aquarium a material. It's going to be quite a simple material. I'll just go to viewport shading quick, and I'm going to change it from my scene lighting and scene world to the default HDRI. I'll just scroll this up. It's got the substrate material at the moment because we duplicated the vertices from the substrate. So I'm just going to delete that material. We'll add a new material and we'll call this glass. So for the glass material, it's going to be a straightforward shader. So I'm going to delete the principal BSDF. I'm going to hit Shift A, add, we'll go for shader, and we'll choose glass. I'm going to change the index of refraction to 1.450. So that's usually the index of refraction for glass. I'll then plug this into the surface. As you can see, this is what we've got. Let's just re-enable my substrate so we can see what we've got. As you can see, we have a slight problem here with the default glass BSDF. When the light penetrates through, some of the light is lost, which is why we get this darker tone. Whereas if I was to mute this glass tank, you can see it's a lot lighter there. So we want the light to penetrate through fully. So here's a good glass hack for you. This is good for architectural visualizations as well. So I'm going to add a mix shader, Shift A, shader, and we go for mix shader. I'm then going to hit Shift A, shader, and we'll choose transparent shader. I'm going to pop the transparent into the bottom socket of the mix shader, and then I'm going to hit Shift A, add, we'll go for input, and we'll choose light path. So this is the default value. So if we take the is shadow ray from the light path node into the mix factor, you can see all shadows have now disappeared. And we've got a nice light colour here. We can also add a bit of roughness to this tank because no surface is ever 100% clean. So to do that, I'm just going to add Shift A, texture, and we'll go for noise texture. Shift A, we'll go input, and we'll choose texture coordinates. Shift A, vector, and we'll go for mapping. Shift A, converter, color ramp. We're going to use object coordinates for this, so I'm going to take the object coordinates into the vector of the mapping node, the vector from the mapping node into the vector of the noise texture, and the factor from the noise texture into the color ramp. I'm going to change it to 4D as well, why not? We've got the option there. I then plug that color ramp into the roughness of the glass BSDF. As you can see, it's a bit misty now, not exactly what we want. I'm going to turn the detail up to 4. And the way the color ramp works, black is 0 and 1 is white. So with the roughness factor, 0 is black, 1 is white, like fully rough, and we can use that to our advantage. Plug the color ramp in, we drag this flag across till we get something around about there, and maybe we don't want 100% rough. So to change that, I just take my white factor and I'm going to bring this down to something very low. So then it's only a slight hint of roughness. You'll see it more with reflections. So if I can get some reflections here. You can kind of see the roughness factor coming in to play there. Maybe I'll increase that and I'll decrease this slightly a bit more. It's very subtle, but it does make a difference. You can also use smears and fingerprint textures on here if you want. I'm just going to keep it nice and simple for now. Maybe we can change the colour of the actual glass, because no glass is 100% pure. So maybe I'll give mine a slight bluish tone. Maybe if I click around here and then I'll turn the saturation down to 0.025. It's not much, but there's a hint, and maybe I can turn it down slightly on the value to 0.995. Okay, so that's the glass and the silicone done. There might be a bit of intersection with this silicone. It shouldn't matter too much because it's black. So now we're going to make the backing paper for the tank. So we just tab into edit mode, hit number 3 for face select. We're going to choose this face here. I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate. I'll hit escape to cancel it in place. I'll then hit P and we'll separate by selection. I'll then select that face. I'm going to hit numpad 3 to go into side view. I'm going to delete the solidification, we'll delete the bevel modifier, and I'm going to hit GY, hold down control, snap it to the grid till it's touching the back face. Again, it's going to have intersection there, we don't want that. So numpad 3, I'm going to zoom right in as much as I can, and I'm just going to hit GY, hold down shift to drag it on a small increment. We'll bring it out to maybe round about there, just so there's a little gap between the back paper and the aquarium. GY, maybe bring it in a bit closer, something like that. Let's just rename these objects so we don't get confused. So this one, we'll name it Aquarium. This one we'll call backing paper, and this one we'll call silicone. So we're going to select this backing paper here, we're going to delete this material, we're going to add a new material, and we'll call this backing paper. We're going to make this a fairly simple material, but it's going to be quite effective because we want it to change colour every time we duplicate it based on a set of colours that we choose. So I'm going to hit Shift A, converter, colour ramp, Shift A, input, and we go for object info. Now with this colour ramp, I'm just going to add a few colours which I think would be suitable for a backing paper of an aquarium. So maybe this first colour I'm going to set to kind of aqua green, something around there. Maybe this second colour I want to be sort of a nice rich blue, maybe a darker blue. I'll choose this next colour and we can set this to sort of a lighter blue. Then maybe we can have a green in there as well, something around there perhaps. Maybe we'll choose another green, a darker green this time, maybe a bit richer in colour, something around there. Might have another couple of flags, so I'm going to go for another blue, but I'm going to go for more of a darker pastel blue, something around there. Maybe I'll add another flag. This one can be pitch black and this one will remain white. We're also going to change the interpolation type to constant. Okay, let's just drag some of these across. So with this backing paper, I'm actually going to duplicate this several times. I'm going to delete the duplicates in a minute. I just want to see what we're getting for our money. So I'm going to hit Shift D, X. I'll select this backing paper, Shift select this one, Shift D, X, Shift D, X. Maybe one more time, Shift D, X. Let's just go into rendered view quick, and then going to plug the colour into the base colour, and I'm going to plug this random value into the factor of the colour ramp. Now as you can see, we're getting different coloured backing paper for every duplicate. I'm just going to drag some of these flags across, just so we get more of an even spread. Something around there, okay. I'm going to shift select all of these backing papers here, and I'm going to hit X and delete, so we've still got the original one. So with this original backing paper, let's just go into Look Dev, Viewport Shading. With this original backing paper here, I might just bring it back a tiny bit more just to ensure that there is definitely no intersection anywhere. So I'll hit GY, drag it back to about there. So now if we select this aquarium object, we go to our vertex groups, the data tab down here, we've still got all those vertex groups which were on the actual substrate. Because remember, we made the aquarium from the vertices from the substrate, so we're just going to select the aquarium and we're going to delete all those groups. There's no need for them to be there. Let's just give this backing material a different colour in the viewport. So with the backing material, I'll go to the material panel over here, and under viewport, I'm just going to change the colour of this to, let's say, a blue colour. And for the aquarium, I'm going to change this to a pale green colour, maybe. Go into your colour, and give it some alpha. Maybe let's set it to 0.25 just so we can kind of see what's going on there. Maybe I'll select for silicone as well. I'll just give that a black material in the viewport display. It's just easier to differentiate the different elements. And maybe on my substrate material, I'm going to change that to a yellowy colour, something around about there. The lighting for this should be fairly straightforward. I'll just do a simple lighting setup for the minute. We're going to select our area light, which we had from the previous tutorial. I'm just going to decrease it to, let's say, 1.75 by 0.25. This will simulate like an LED light strip for your aquarium. Hit numpad 1 to go into front view. Let's just hide my camera so I can see what I'm doing. I then toggle on X-ray view, and this needs to be above the surface. So I'm going to hit G, Z, hold down control. I'm going to snap it to the grid, maybe 5 units above. That should be 5 centimeters. Let's just see what we've got so far. Toggle off X-ray view, go into render view, to see what we've got. We can turn the lighting up. I might turn this saturation down to 0.05. Slightly on the warm side of the scale, I believe. Obviously we can't see anything happening because over here I changed it to the default HDRI. So I'm going to click scene world, scene lights. I hit numpad 0 to go into camera view. Let's just check the brightness. Maybe we can turn it up, let's say 50 watts. See what that does. Okay, that's a lot brighter. It might be a bit too bright. Also, I changed the world background. So if we go to your world settings here, I gave it a really dark blue color and I turned the strength up to 1. It just gives a nice ambient light for what we're doing. I'll just adjust my camera quick. Okay, we're making good progress. I guess the next thing we need to do is add a bit of volume into this aquarium. So I'll just go to my aquarium. I'm going to hide that. I'm also going to hide the backing paper. I'm going to select my substrate material. I'll tab into edit mode, number 1 for vertex selection. I'll then select this bottom corner vertice. I'll select this one. We'll do the same for the other side. So I'm going to select this one and shift select this one. I'll then hit F for face. I'll then hit P to separate, and we'll separate the selection. I'll tab out of edit mode. I'll select that bottom face. Again, I'm going to remove all the modifiers. I'll then hit numpad 1 to go into front view. I'm going to delete the material. We're going to add a new material and we'll call this volume. I'll then hit G, Z. I'm going to drag this up to, let's say, round about there. It shouldn't be intersecting. No, cool, excellent. So with this object selected, tab into edit mode. I'm going to select all the vertices, hit numpad 1 to go into front view. Let's just make this a bit bigger so we can see what we're doing. I'll then hit E, Z, hold down control, snap it to the grid till it's right at the very top. We don't want it overlapping. Maybe we can have it a tiny bit lower. So I hit G, Z, hold down control, and just bring it down 1 to round about there. I'll tab out of edit mode. I'm going to check my normals over here. Go to overlays and go face orientation. Okay, we need to flip the normals because all of these should be blue. Tab into edit mode, select all the vertices, go to mesh, normals, recalculate outside, so they're all blue. Excellent. I'll then re-enable my aquarium, re-enable the backing paper. I'm going to toggle my overlay face orientation off, hit numpad 1 to go into front view, maybe numpad 0 to go into camera view. I'll then go to viewport shading, so I go to principal BSDF. I'm going to delete that, hit shift A, and we'll go for shader and volume absorption. I'll then plug the volume absorption into the volume material output. As you can see, we're getting volume absorption. We can change the color of that to anything we like. I'm going to use the same method with a color ramp. I want the volume absorption to change color every time we duplicate this. So I'm going to hit Shift A, we'll go Converter, Color Ramp, and Shift A, Input, and we'll choose Object Info. I'm not going to choose as many colors for this one. Maybe 4 colors should be enough, or possibly 5. So for the first color, I'm going to set it to something around about there. This color, maybe I'll set it to kind of a greenish tone, not that green, maybe like this kind of green. And for this one, maybe I'll set this to a sandy color, and we'll just go for another blue perhaps, maybe a slightly richer blue. And for this one, maybe it's slightly yellower green but darker. Again, I'm going to change this from linear to constant. I'll then plug the color from the color ramp into the color socket of the volume absorption, and we'll choose random. I'm just going to toggle on scene world so I can see the lights from the scene world, and we're going to change the density to 1. Hit Shift D, X, snap it to the grid, Shift D, X, snap it to the grid, Shift D, X, snap it to the grid. I'm just going to keep doing this a couple of times. We're getting no color variation hardly here. We are getting some, but we can change this. Okay, I'll be happy with that. Maybe we can change the density down to 0.05 or 0.5, something around there. I know it's only a little bit. We want to keep it subtle. You can, in fact, add a map range to this if we want. So let's say we want the values between 0.05 and 1. So I'm going to hit Shift A and I'm going to search for map and then go for map range. So I said the minimum would be 0.5 and the maximum would be 1.5. I'll then plug that into the result of the density, and then I'll choose this random factor as the value. So we'll drag this random factor into the value of the map range, and now the density is also going to be randomized every time we duplicate all of these. So let's just duplicate these again, hit Shift D, X, so they'll have random densities based on these two values and random colors based on these values. Box select all of these, X, and delete. Go back into camera view, and maybe that volume object, as you can see, it's still named as substrate and it will have those vertex groups on. So we'll remove the vertex groups and we'll rename it to volume. I'm just going to check these other items haven't got the vertex groups on. So we know the substrate has the silicone. We need to remove the groups. We don't want those on there. The backing paper will also remove the vertex groups. The aquarium, we're already done, so it's just a substrate with those groups. Okay, so far so good. We'll just make this volume object so we can see it in the viewport. So I'm going to go to viewport shading, and with the volume object selected, I'll then go to viewport display under your material panel here. I'm going to change the color, let's say a red color, and give it some alpha so we can kind of see through it. We can see all our assets. I'll set it to 0.5. Excellent. So we're going to improve this scatter distribution system. Let's just move all these objects into a collection. I'm going to select the volume, shift select the substrate, the silicone, the backing paper, and the aquarium. I'm then going to hit M for move. I'll click add collection, and we'll call this collection aquarium. I'll then hit this button and it will move all those objects into this collection called aquarium. So I'm going to mute the volume, I'm going to mute the silicone, the backing paper, and the aquarium. So we're just left with this substrate here. So the thing we're going to improve here will be the vertex groups. I've actually, since the last tutorial, I've actually added an extra group here. So for this sake, I'm going to go to my modifiers, and as you can see, each vertex group is set for each modifier. So just add 5 vertex groups and keep your displace group, and we're going to rename these in convention with the modifiers. So this one, Didiplis diandra. So I'm going to select this name here. I'm going to hit Control C. I'm going to go to my vertex group and I'm going to double click here and Control V. So that's Didiplis diandra group. I'm going to do the same for the next group. Shift C, copy the rocks. I'm going to paste it into group 2. I'll go to the next one, Crinum Fianum. So I'm going to select that, hit Control C, go to my vertex groups, paste that into there. Go back to my modifiers, Echinodorus amazonicus. So I'm going to hit Control C to copy that, go to my vertex groups, that'll be group 4, and for group 5 that will be Echinodorus tenalis. Select that, hit Control C, go to my vertex group, paste that into here. I'm then going to tab into edit mode, select all the vertices. I'm going to go to my Didiplis diandra, I'm going to click remove, go to my rocks, click remove, go to the Crinum Fianum, remove, Echinodorus amazonicus, remove, and Echinodorus tenalis, click remove. So now the only vertex group that should be there will be the displaced group. So if I select the displaced group and click select, these are all the vertices that are displaced with the displace modifier here, which should be there, displaced group, and here, displaced group. So now we need to select those groups. So the Didiplis diandra would be the Didiplis diandra. The rocks vertex density factor will be rocks. The Crinum Fianum will be Crinum Fianum. Echinodorus amazonicus will be Echinodorus amazonicus. And finally, the Echinodorus tenalis will be the Echinodorus tenalis vertex group. Nothing's appearing because we wiped the groups clean. So for rocks, I'm going to tab into edit mode, go to top view, I'm going to hit A to deselect vertices. We'll make sure that X-ray's turned off because we only want to select the top vertices. And for here, I'm just going to place some rocks, hit C, circle select, grab some vertices there, grab some vertices here, and maybe some around here. I'll then click on the rocks, I'll click assign. Now we've got rocks in those vertex groups. I'm going to hit A, and we're going to deselect all, and we'll go for Crinum Fianum next. I'm going to hit C. I'll have a Crinum Fianum around about there, maybe one around about here. I then right click to end my circle selection. I'll click assign. We've got some Crinum Fianums. I'm going to hit A and select all toggles to deselect everything. I'll go to Echinodorus amazonicus. I hit C. I'll add a couple there. It's quite a big plant, this one, so I don't want it too close to the edge. With the Echinodorus amazonicus, I'm going to click assign. I'm not happy with the distribution. Maybe it's a bit close, so I'm actually going to remove. I'm going to hit C for circle select. I'll deselect these, and maybe I'll select them a bit closer over to here, and maybe I'll deselect these ones. It's a bit close to the edge. Maybe deselect some of these here. I'll then click assign, see what we've got. Maybe I'll increase that selection. Assign. Okay, we can change the amount and the density with the actual modifier itself, so let's just go and do that now. So we go to our modifiers, go to Echinodorus amazonicus. I'm not happy with the size. That is quite big, that plant. Actually, no, I can live with that. But the Crinum, I'm going to change the density down to maybe 50. It's going to have a random seed there. So we got a bit of intersection, so maybe they're a bit close. So then tab into edit mode and go back to my data panel. I'll then click over here to make sure there's no vertices selected, and maybe we can change the Crinum vertex group. So I'm going to click select. So they're intersecting a bit here. So maybe if I click these vertices here, we're going to remove that from the Crinum group. So I click remove, maybe a bit more around there. Click remove. So with no vertices selected, goes back to my Crinum. I'm going to click select, maybe hit C, we'll select some over here, and I'll assign that. Okay, so next up I'm going to do the Didiplis diandras. The Didiplis diandras, if you can remember, they don't spread out so much, so we can have these a bit closer to the edge and maybe add a few more of them. So I'm going to hit C, circle select, grab a cluster there, we'll have a cluster there, maybe cluster there, we'll add some here, we'll add some there, maybe around here. I'm still going to keep it away from the edges, because with the plant animator, where the plants move about, I don't want them waving outside of the glass domain. I'm just going to select some random places over here, random places here, maybe a bit more in there, some in here. These are going to kind of dominate the tank. So then I'll click assign for the Didiplis diandras. Excellent. I'll then tab out of edit mode. Let's just see what we've got. Go to numpad 1 for front view. Okay, we've got quite a bit of intersection here. So I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to click over here. I'm going to hit C, and we're going to select all of these vertices here, and I'm going to remove that from the selection because I don't want it intersecting with this plant. It doesn't matter too much, and maybe we can actually reduce the size. I think that was the Echinodorus amazonicus. Yep, so we're going to reduce the size of that as well to, let's say, 0.35 for the max, and for the Echinodorus tenalis we can actually reduce the size of these. Actually, we'll keep it at that. Let's see how high the aquarium is in relation to the plants. Okay, I'll be happy with that. Maybe we can add a few more rocks into the scene as well. So I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'll go back to my vertex data over here, and under rocks I'm going to click over here to make sure there's no vertices selected. I'm going to hit C. Just going to add a few more rocks, maybe some in this corner here, not too close though, because some of these rocks can be quite large. Maybe a couple here, maybe some at the back. I'll click assign. We've got some rocks going on there. Excellent. For the Echinodorus tenalis clusters, click over here. So we've got no vertices selected. And with the Echinodorus tenalis clusters, it doesn't matter if they intersect too much because they're really small, so it'll be hardly noticeable. But we don't want them close to the edge, not too close to the edge. So I'm just going to select some random vertices around here, maybe around there. That might be too close. Let's see. I'm going to randomly paint some vertices on here. Okay, so with my circle select tool, I'm going to right click, select that out, and I'm going to click assign. I'll then tab out of edit mode, turn off my overlays. If I push play, it should all be animating. Let's just go into render view, see what we've got. Okay, I'm kind of happy with that. Hit numpad 0 for my camera view. I'm going to re-enable my volume. I'm going to enable the silicone, the backing paper, and the aquarium. That's what we've got so far. I am going to make another adjustment to this as well. So with the rock material, I've made one change off camera, and I'm going to make another change on camera. So I'll just show you what that is right now. So I'll just mute the aquarium collection, and I'm going to enable my rocks. As you remember, they're all in the same location at the moment. We kind of need them there, but what I'll do is I'll just grab rock 1. We've got the first 4 rocks, so we want to keep those. I'm just going to hit Shift D, X, Shift D, X, Shift D, X, Shift D, X, and I'll just do this a couple more times. Okay, now I'll go into viewport. No, yeah, I'll go into rendered view quick. Right, the main change I made with this material. So basically, this node wasn't there. So everything else was exactly the same. And I just added this bump node, which I took the noise texture and I plugged it directly into the height of this bump node, which then plugged into the normal of this bump node. And it just gives it another level of detail. Like without it, if I hit M, you can see these rocks are a bit smoother, and with it, if I hit M, you can see we're getting a bit more detail there. So if you add that bump node in, you would have caught up, The next thing I'm going to do, I'll hit Shift A, add, and we'll go for color, mix color. I'm going to plug this into here. I'm going to change this to maybe like a yellowish color, maybe a darker yellow, something around there. I'm then going to set this mix type to screen. I'm then going to hit Shift A, input, and we'll go for object info, and we're going to take the random value into the factor. So now all the rocks are going to be slightly different. So if you remember, we want to keep the top 4 rocks because they're the originals, and we'll delete everything else. So let's just mute that rock collection. I'm going to unmute the aquarium, numpad 0, get rid of my overlays. Now the rocks are going to look slightly different, and every time we duplicate the aquarium they're going to look different. Maybe it's not the best colour, maybe you could turn it to like a bluish grey, or you could even drive it with a colour ramp so you got more variation in colour. And with the lights over here, I'm going to take this area light, this one up here, and I'm going to hit M for move, and we're going to move that to the aquarium collection. I hit numpad 0 to go into front view. Let's just go to viewport shading. Now under your aquarium you can create instances or duplicates. If you create an instance by hitting Alt D, it will make a copy of this, but it will be based on the same geometry, so your GPU won't have to keep recalculating fresh geometry. It will just recalculate it from this. But some of the randomization factors might not work with instances. They might, I'm not too sure. So for my example, I'm going to actually create a fresh duplicate using Shift D. So I'm going to select this volume object in my view layers. I'm going to hit Control Shift and select the aquarium. So I've got all the items selected, including the area light. I'll then hit Shift D, X, and hold down Control. I'm going to hit M for move, and I'm going to add a collection, and we'll call this Aquarium 2, and I'm going to click this button to move all those objects into that aquarium. I'll then hit Shift D, X, drag this across, holding down Control to snap it to the grid. I'll then do the same again, Shift D, X, and drag it this way this time, holding down Control, Shift D, X, hold down Control. So now if I go into rendered view, turn off my overlays, all of these should be different. They'll have different scatter distributions, all the colours will be different, the backing paper will be different, the colour of the water will be different, and the substrate will appear different. So now you've got endless aquariums for the price of one. So if you made it this far, give yourselves a pat on the back. You've got this asset forever now. And also with this biome system that we made with the geometry node scatter distribution system, you can also append that into another project. You can use that scatter distribution system to make forest floors, meadows, and different biome systems for different environments. When you add one of these scatter distribution geometry nodes modifiers, always remember to make a vertex group and choose the vertex group before you choose your collection. And the reason why is the geometry gets out of hand and it will crash your computer, so just keep that in mind. That's the main part of the tutorial done. We're just going to model a roof and maybe put this on a table or a rack. I haven't quite decided yet. So now I'll go to my Aquarium 2 folder here, and I'm going to select all the items in the Aquarium 2 folder, and I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to keep the collection because obviously I'm going to make more duplicates. We always want to keep the original in the original aquarium collection, and any duplicates, they should go into this one. It just makes it easier if you want to delete anything or move anything about. I think it's time to get on and model the lid. So I'm going to select my aquarium here. I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm then going to select all of these outer bottom vertices here. So I'll select this one, shift select this one, and we'll do the same for this side. Shift select this one, shift select this one. I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate, and I'm going to hit Z and snap it to the grid up to around about there. I'll then hit P and I'll choose by selection. I'll then tab out of edit mode. I'll select this object here. I'll just make sure that there's no vertex groups on there. Okay, excellent. I'm going to remove the glass material. I'm also going to go into modifiers, and we're going to remove the modifiers. Then hit numpad 1 to go into front view. I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to select all the vertices. I'm going to hit G, Z, hold down Control, snap it to the grid till it's level with the top here. In fact, we are going to intersect this slightly. So what I might do is hit numpad 1 again. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hit G, Z, hold down Control to snap it to the grid. I'll bring it down 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 units. So that's 5 centimeters. So I have a 5 centimeter overhang. I'll then hit E, Z, hold down Control, snap it to the grid. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hit G, Z, hold down Control, snap it to the grid till it's 10 centimeters above the tank. I'll then hit I. I'm going to bring this in to around about there, and maybe I can change the thickness on here to 0.15. Okay, I'll close this menu. I'll I'll then hit numpad 1 to go into front view. I'm going to hit G, Z, hold down control and snap it up 1. Something around about there. Tab out of edit mode. I'll then hit Control A to apply the scale. G, Z, hold down control. I'm going to bring this up. As you can see, we've got a face facing on the bottom here. We don't want that, so I'm going to tab into edit mode 3. I'm going to select this face. I'm going to hit delete and we'll delete the face. Excellent. I'll then tab out of edit mode. I'll hit G, Z, hold down control, snap it to the grid, and with this intersection, this doesn't matter so much because we're going to add a solidify modifier pointing outward. So go to your modifiers, click add new, we'll go to generate and we'll choose solidify. Maybe I'll give it a thickness of 0.025 and I'll change the offset so it's pointing outward. Okay, that's a bit thick, maybe 0.01. Yep, that should be sufficient. Excellent. I'll then give it an even thickness and I'm going to check my normals. So I'm going to mute this modifier here. I'll click this button here and I'm going to go to face orientation. Excellent, everything's blue, which is what it should be. So I'll turn that off. And now I know I can re-enable this and not have any problems. We're also going to add a bevel modifier to this because no edge in real life is 100% sharp. So if I collapse this solidify modifier, I go to add modifier, I go to generate and we'll choose bevel. As you can see, the bevel is going to be constrained to the thickness of the actual lid itself. So we can reduce the amount, let's say 0.025. Let's see what that does. Okay, that's not enough. Let's bring it down by hand. Okay, we'll go 0.0025. Excellent. And I'm going to give it 8 cuts. You don't need to give it that many. You could probably get away with like 3 or 4. Usually these tanks have got a feeding flap, so we could just add that quickly. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, mute my solidify modifier. I'll then hit Control R. We're going to add a loop cut here. I'll then hit Control B and we're going to bring this across to around about there. And then I'll hit number 3 for face select. I'll select this face. I'm then going to hit I to inset, and now I'll hit P to separate, and we'll choose by selection. Tab out of edit mode, select this flap here. I'm going to change the pivot point, so I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to hit number 2 for edge select. I'll select this edge here. I'll then hit Shift S and we'll choose cursor to selected. I'll then tab out of edit mode. We'll go to object, set origin, origin to 3D cursor. So now when I've got this object selected and I hit RX, the flap opens exactly how it should. We'll re-enable the modifiers for that, and we'll re-enable the modifier for this. Name this object here. We'll name it to lid. I'll then select this object here and I'm going to rename it to lid feeding flap. Now we need to give this a material, so I'm going to drag this window up, make sure that you're in your shader editor here. So with this object selected, I'm going to click new. We're going to use the principal BSDF and maybe we can make it a black color. So I'll just drag this down till it's completely black. I'll then hit Shift A, add, and we'll go for texture, noise texture. I'll then hit Control T. That will only work if you've got the node wrangler enabled. So in order to do that, go to edit, preferences, and go to add-ons and search for node. Then you should enable this add-on here. So then when you've got either a noise texture or an image texture, with it selected, you just hit Control T and it'll add a texture coordinate and a mapping node for you. I'm going to change it to object coordinates. We're going to keep the object blank because we want the actual lid to be the object, and I'm going to change it from 3D to 4D. I'll then hit Shift A, add, and we'll go for vector bump. I'm going to plug the factor into the height and the normal from the bump map into the normal of the principal BSDF. Now obviously that noise is a bit large and too strong, so let's just increase the scale to 248, maybe a bit higher. Yeah, a bit higher. Let's go for 500, and we'll turn the strength down to, let's say, 0.25. Should be a good reference point. Okay, excellent. Let's just add a few variations in the roughness as well. So I'll grab these, bring this down there, I'll bring this down here, and with the noise texture, I'm going to hit Control Shift D, and that will duplicate that noise texture, but it will keep the connection to the mapping node. I'll then just plug this into the color for now, and now we'll reduce the scale to, let's say, 5 for a starting point, maybe a bit less, let's say 4. We'll give it detail of 4, and maybe a bit of distortion, 0.25. Now I'm going to add a color ramp, so Shift A, add converter, and we go for color ramp. I'll pop that into here. Just going to drag these flags across slightly. Now black is going to be 100% shiny and white is going to be 100% rough. So we don't want either 100% rough or 100% shiny because this is going to be plastic. So we'll take the base color. We'll take this from the base color and we'll plug it into the roughness here. I'm going to unplug my bump node by holding down Control, right clicking and strike through. Now we can see what we're getting here. So I'm just going to drag these across to around about there. I'm going to turn the white value down to 0.8. And I'm going to turn the black value to, let's say, 0.6. Maybe it can be a bit more shiny actually. So let's take this white value down to 0.75 and we'll take this one down to 0.5. Okay, that's still not shiny enough for my liking. I'm gonna have to drag this down a bit more. Maybe we'll say 0.4 for the left flag and 0.5 for the right flag. Yep, that's better. So we're getting a bit more specular on there, a bit more shine. And then I'll plug my bump straight back into the normal with the principal BSDF. Okay, I'm kind of happy with that. You can tweak this to make it look a lot more realistic, but you know, we can get away with that. So then I'm going to select this feeding flap. I'll shift select the lid. I'm going to hit Control L and we're going to click link materials. So now they both got the same material. Excellent. Hit numpad 0 to go into camera view. That's basically our aquarium. Maybe we can shrink it down a bit because it seems like it's a bit of a chunky lid. Let's do that now. Hit numpad 1 to go into front view. I'm going to select the flap, shift select the lid, go into X-ray view. I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to hit number 1 for vertices select, and I'm going to box select all of these top vertices here, and we're going to drag them down by 5 units, 5 centimeters. So I'm going to hit G, Z, hold down control, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, keep it a bit more low profile. Maybe I'll change the viewport color of that material as well. Let's go to your material section over here, and under viewport display, I'm just going to bring this down so it's a darker color. We could add a plastic band around the base. A lot of fish tanks have got plastic bands around the base, but I actually prefer them without. You get to see the substrate a bit more. And then going to go into viewport shading to see what we've got. Excellent. I'm kind of happy with that. We've just got a couple more tweaks to make before we compile this into a final render. One of the tweaks is going to be the substrate. So I'm going to navigate to my substrate in my aquarium collection. So I'll click the substrate. I'm going to go to my modifiers, and under displacement, I'm just going to reduce the displacement to, let's say, 0.05, just so it's not as prominent. We've also got a problem with our scatter distribution system. We can fix that quick. So I'm just going to hide my aquarium. I'll hide the volume object so we can see the substrate. I'll then hit numpad 1 to go into front view. If I hit G, X and drag it across, you can see the seeds of the plants aren't actually changing. And what I want to happen is if I hit Shift D and X and drag that on the X axis with a duplicate, I actually want a different seed of the scatter distribution. So what we need to do is we go into geometry nodes here. It's a really easy fix. And to fix that, I'm just going to hit Shift A, add, and we'll search for combine XYZ. Plug that into there. I'm going to delete this node here and combine the X, Y and Z into here. I'll then plug the vector into the top socket, delete that bottom socket there, and for this value, let's say I'll give it a value of 50. As you can see, the seed's changed. So now if I hit G, X, the scatter distribution is changing, and that should affect all of these globally. So that's that fixed. I'll just delete that quick. I'll re-enable my volume. I'll re-enable my aquarium. The next problem we're going to have will be the light transmission for my area light. If I quickly go into rendered view, so go into viewport rendering, it looks fine from this angle, but when we go below, we can see it's shining through on here, and we don't want that. That's an easy enough fix. With your area light selected, we go to the object settings over here, we go to visibility, and I'll turn off transmission. There will be another thing with your scene, so you might have a large file size by now. We've been duplicating and deleting, so really we want to clean up the blend file, because although we've got all these objects here, there's actually objects in your scene that won't appear here. They're hidden as data blocks. To delete any recursive data blocks like deleted objects and stuff like that, we go to File, Clean Up, and we'll select recursive unused data blocks. And it will show you purging 7 unused data blocks, 2 materials, 5 meshes. Click here and that will completely clean our scene. So then the only thing that's left is what's in our collections here, and that will save you quite a lot of space. I guess the final step is to make this into a scene so you can showcase your work. We're just going to make a basic scene. It's up to you to use this asset in any of your renders. You can use it for any purpose, like ArchViz, you know, just as a bit of decoration in the background or whatever. What I'm going to do is just make an array of these on some shelving units. I'm going to keep the background as a plain blue colour. It's a nice ambient colour to play with. So I'll just go into viewport shading. I'm going to hit numpad 1. I'm just going to mute my camera quick just so we can see what we're doing. Let's make this area a bit bigger. I guess we're going to need a shelf of some kind. So I'm going to hit Shift A, add, go for mesh, and I'll choose plane. Go to my modifiers. I go to generate, and I'm going to add a solidify modifier. I'll give it a thickness of 0.05. Nice and chunky. Okay, I'll go into top view. I'm going to hit S, Y, hold down control, snap it to the grid, have a bit of overhang there, and maybe I hit S, X, scale that out slightly to around about there. I hit numpad 1 to go into front view, so I'm going to hit S, X, 5, hit enter. It should give us plenty of space. I'm also going to make sure that this plane is below the tank. So I'm going to hit G, Z, hold down control to snap it to the grid, and I'll snap it to there. Excellent. Maybe I can give this a material now. So I'm just going to drag this up here, go to my shader editor, click new material. I'm just going to give it a basic material, maybe something like a matte black. So I'm going to drag this down to the base color is black, and I'll give it a roughness of 1. Hit numpad 1 for front view, give it some more space here. I'm then going to go to my aquarium collection, and I'm going to control shift and select all these objects here. I'll also shift select this shelf. I'm going to hit shift D, Z, hold down control, drag it on the Z axis to around about there. Okay, I'll then deselect the shelf. I'm going to hit M for move, and I'm going to move the duplicated aquarium into a collection called Aquarium 2, and that way it's easier to delete these objects and duplicate them whilst maintaining the original one. And with this aquarium, I'm going to hit shift D, X, hold down control, snap it to the grid to around about there. Shift D, X, hold down control, snap it to the grid to around about there. Okay, I'll then select this top aquarium in Aquarium 2 collection, scroll to the bottom, hold down control and shift, and select all of these objects here. I'm going to hit shift D, Z, hold down control, snap it to the grid till around about there. I'm going to hit shift D, Z, hold down control, snap it to the grid till around about there. Now we can duplicate this shelf. Shift D, Z, drag this up to there. Shift D, Z, we'll drag this up to around about there. Okay, so now I just need to fill in these two here. Go into X-ray. I'm going to box select this top aquarium on this side, and I'm going to shift box select this aquarium with all its objects. I'm going to hit shift D, Z, we're going to drag it down until it fits into this bottom slot here. So now if I go into my camera view by hitting numpad 0, I'm going to have to change the camera settings here. So I'll select my camera to re-enable it into viewport. I'm going to turn off X-ray view. Right, it's going to be a bit laggy at the moment because we've got so much geometry going on. So I go to my camera settings. I'm going to change my focal length to maybe a mid-range of 40mm, so we've got a bit of compression there. I'll go to my object data over here, and with the camera still selected, I'm going to set the Y location to -11 meters. Let's see if that encompasses it all. Okay, maybe -8 meters. We've encompassed the edges there, and I might drag this up on the Z axis. Let's see, maybe 2.5 meters. I'm going to drag it back on the Y axis by -10. Okay, we're just about managing to encompass it all. Maybe I'll stick to the -11 meters. Okay, I'll be happy with that. I'll just go into viewport rendered shading, see what we've got. Let's just turn off my overlays. Okay, we've got a bit of a problem here. I'm guessing that reflection on these tanks is coming from the sun, which is here. Let's just mute the sun. Yep, it's coming from the sun. Okay, we can adjust that. I might move these planes, which are just these shelf units here. I'm going to hit M for move. I'm going to add a collection, and I'll call it shelves. I'll click this button to move those into that collection. Now we've got our sun here. We can reduce the reflection on this glass by just reducing the X rotation value. I'll say 12 degrees. That might get rid of it. Perfect. There's a bit too much reflection on these shelves for me, for my liking. So I just might take one of these shelves. I'll go to the material, and under specular, I'm going to change the index of refraction level to 0.25, and that will reduce the reflection. Let's just call this base material, just so we know what we're going to be looking for. So I'm going to add another plane. Shift A, add mesh plane. I'm going to hit RX90 to rotate it on the x-axis by 90. Then I'll hit S10 to scale it up by 10. Okay, I'm just going to go into my viewport shading. So with this object selected, I'm going to hit numpad 3 to go into side view. I'll hit GY. I'm just going to drag this back to around about there. Okay, I'll hit numpad 0 to go into camera view, and with this object selected, I'm going to set the material, which was base material. Now if I go into camera view, let's just see what we've got. Okay, I'll be kind of happy with that. Maybe I can adjust my camera tilt shift slightly. So I'll go to camera, and I'll go to the camera data panel over here, and on the Y, on the tilt shift, I might go -0.02. Let's see what that does. Excellent. So if you render this out, this is your final scene. Of course, you can adjust these tanks to your liking. Choose a substrate in any one of these tanks. So for example, if I chose this substrate, I could go in there, I could edit the vertex groups and the scattering, easy enough. or you can go to your modifiers. You can change all your settings and your modifiers for that individual tank. If you come across a problem where maybe you might have a rock that's poking out of your tank, it's kind of slightly intersecting, you just select the substrate of that tank and you adjust the settings here. We haven't got any intersection on this example, but if you incur that, you can easily adjust it using your modifiers here. I would suggest making more assets. I think I just ended up making 5 base rocks. If it was me, for a final render, maybe I would model 10 rocks and extra plants, but as a starting point, I think this is quite good. And with these individual biome systems, we can actually import the scatter distribution geometry node modifiers into other projects, and instead of having aquatic plants, you can have trees, ferns, brambles, so you can create forests or meadows or anything like that. I recommend you append that into other projects of yours. So if you found this useful, please consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. It really helps me grow to help me make more content for you guys. So that's all for now. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.